600 hours signed off in the log, 24th of February. Okay folks, 600 hours on the Cruzer. So 24th of March, was it 2020, last year, was when I started the Cruzer, or when the actual box arrived to my shed. Today's the 24th of February, the next year, 2021. Everyone remembers the big C word for 2020 and 2021. So I just thought I'd show you what 600 hours has achieved. I think the factory quotes 800 hours, so I'm probably on par, I reckon. Another 200 odd hours to go. But 600 hours, 11 months, so what's that, 44 weeks? Let's do the math on that quickly. I probably should have written this down before I started the video. 44 weeks, 600 hours, so 10 hours a week before 40, plus a bit more. So looking at an average of 12, 13, 14 hours a week. Bear in mind, during that time, I also purchased the hanger. I showed you the videos of the painting the floor, setting up the hanger. And also during that time, the last 12 months, since June last year, I've flown 100 hours in the Jabiru. So I flew yesterday, got about 2 hours left, got to do my annual inspection and 100 hourly on the Jabiru. As far as the Cruzer goes, 600 hours, where are we up to? Just finalising, going to trim the back edge of the sunroof. Start at the front here, got the Jabiru 3300 on. No issues with installing the engine. I've got the plugs out because I've been turning the engine over just on the starter motor. What I've found with the MGL that I'm using, so MGL Avionics with the RDAC, every system, so at the front here I've got oil pressure from the VDO sender unit, which runs back to your RDAC. Then on the EFIS inside, you've got to tell it what sort of sensor and flick through all sorts. Have to fill it with oil, fit the oil cooler, turn it over to get oil pressure. And then I moved on to oil temperature, is down the bottom there, in the sump obviously. Heat that up with my hairdryer just to get ambient temperature. A lot of fiddling around with the MGL stuff, but it seems to be working. Just this morning I was playing with RPM. I just taken out the tacho sender, the normal Jabiru that would go to a VDO gauge. I've taken that out. I think I'm either going to run a P-lead from the coil or the magneto to the RDAC, both coils, or I'll make up a plate and put a Hall effect sensor to pick up on the north-south poles of the magnetos. I'm using the blue tape just to let me know that, like, you know, the Adele clamps, the P-clamps are undone here and needs bundling and that sort of thing. Once I get things working, then I sort of cut them to length, get them nice and neat. So we did the airbox, carby, nose wheels all in, got all my wiring complete now, got my new battery. So basically my system is these big, what are they, number 4 wires, number 10 wire, and all the small stuff is either 16 or 22 even, I think, on the real small stuff. Did my fuel system, filter, fuel pump, just got my leads hanging down there in the way. I've had 2 goes now with the throttle, so the choke is okay, I'm happy with the choke. The throttle, I've got that undone, hence the blue tape, trying to get the angle of the dangle right. I made the new arm on the carby to give me more stroke up at the handle, and the end result of all that is that I'm going to revisit the throttle cable. I'm just not happy. I think it'd work with a stranded cable in there just to give some flex. Because this is a 78th hour solid stainless steel rod, when I go to, if I can move it by hand, when I go to idle, anyway, it's not done up at the moment, this doesn't flex as much as it needs to. So that's where we're at on that. A bit of Tygons hanging down here, just a reminder, that just goes to a drain at some stage. Now I did scare myself when I've been turning the engine over on the starter motor to get oil pressure and RPM, and I left the red caps that they come in here, and they shot off and sort of made a loud noise. So, engine, firewall forward side, nose wheel basically complete. I think it was a 19mm hole with the axle, cotter pin. Just a note on the nose wheel, the spaces that are in there, they might only be, say, I'm only guessing, but say 20, 22mm. So you got a 19mm hole and it only just grabs on a lip, but obviously that works. The nuts, I've got them facing down. You've got clearance there. I have seen them facing the other way. So on the nose wheel. I like to think I'm sort of 3/4 of the way through fitting the windscreen. Continue on with that today. Sunroof has been clecoed on. Just going to trim the back edge. Then I still have to drill across the top of the windscreen and work out what I'm going to do at the base here. Other things I've seen, I guess, I'm not saying I've done it right, but some people seem to put this skin under the outside skin, but you want the water to run down. I was contemplating cutting the windscreen up here. I'm still working on this as to whether I think I'll end up cutting it down there. But I won't cut the windscreen there, I'll cut the windscreen higher so this rubber strip meets the bottom of the door sill nicely, rather than have it just end nowhere. It'll meet there. Just cosmetics. Got the Matco brakes on, standard wheels. I'm going to fit spats. I powder coated the main landing gear strut. All the cool cats are doing the tube at the back, and just got the those blocks double-sided taped. We'll see how that holds up. People have commented how nice and shiny my brakes and everything are, because everything's brand new. Obviously brakes are not yet bled, and once the wings are on, I think there's a video of Roger at Zenith kicking the tyre just to make sure there's no fore and aft movement, and tighten down these orange rubber blocks to torque the undercarriage up. Inside, rudder pedals, everything's complete. I like to finish most of the jobs as I go. Dashboard, and trying to give my upholsterer a hurry up on the seats now. We did the headset jack, all the upholstery inside. Windows will get clecoed in, I think, for spray painting the outside of the aircraft. Then I'm going to go, I've ordered nuts and bolts, 3mm, rather than soft rivets. I'm going to go with 3mm nuts and bolts around the edges here. I've got some nice mushroom head Allen key bolts that'll, when painted, will just look like rivets anyway. Oh, there you go, like these fellas here. So that was all done. Made my own header tank, or had it made. Made that out of balsa wood, if you remember, if you've been watching the videos. If you haven't been watching the videos, go back to the start and you can watch it all. And the fuel line, this will be inlet from both tanks, and the vent will run back up the top there. I haven't got a hole or any holes drilled in the side there for access to the banana bracket or the banana slot. I reckon I'll be able to get up in there and get that rod connected. The rod is in there still somewhere. There it is. So that's built in. It's on the other side. So the right hand side of the console is riveted on, and this side is anchor nuts. So it gives me access to my fuel tap, my looms, rudder cables will run in there, bearing in mind they cross over. And got my fuel system. Another bit of tape hanging down here is just my throttle that I'm playing with at the moment. I'm probably going to pull this one out and start again. So all the wiring's complete, the aircraft's wired up, so master on. And avionics will turn the iPad on. And just going through the systems as we go. If I hit the starter, the engine will turn over. Question for the crowds, I guess. I've got this bit from Flightline Interiors in America, I believe. Haven't got anything hooked up yet, but, and the same as this panel back here, whether you have to, not sure whether you have to cut a piece out. I assume neutral elevator, the stick is slightly, well, is forward, so you get equal distance in that slot. I'm not too sure. That'll depend on the length of the rod and the bell crank at the back. But one of the questions I've got, if you fix this boot down, it gives you limited. You see how it wants to move. So it slid forward and then it slides back. I paid big bucks for this boot, but now I think I'll have to chop it up. Obviously that's cosmetic, so function over fit, I guess you'd say. But yeah, interested to see what others have done. Put our nice grips on there and the push the torque. Rear fuselage, basically all complete. Clecos on the, let's call it the dorsal fin. When it comes off, again, I've got my parallel line. So at the moment it's pretty much touching the leading edge, nice tight fit. Just going to relieve that. I'm going to run rubber strip around the base there, so it'll be really nice. Horizontal stabs on, tips are on for good. I clecoed in there to use for my datum. The datum line with a reference of the top of the cabin frame for 0. So I've got negative ½ a degree on my horizontal stab. Still got to do the rudder cable exits. The Teflon block they give you, they suggest it goes on the outside, and then the little aerodynamic case, if you like, goes over the outside. I think Viking sort of did it with the tube, or the straw if you like a Teflon tube, or a bit of brake line, and then a P-clamp. Looks a bit industrial, but functional. Or I might run a bit of tube with Teflon inside just so the cable can't miss. That'll run back to the rudder control horn. The hinge just isn't all the way up in at the moment, that's just so I don't stab anyone. These panels at the back, covered off on that, there's one on each side. I think I'll rivet one side on. I'm going to put a little terminal block probably on the face of this former here for my elevator trim cable, just because I can hook it up, and if it goes the wrong way, just undo the terminals, swap the wires over to change the direction of travel for the elevator trim when that's on. Speaking of elevators, I noticed on the forums and that, a lot of people seem to be investing a lot of time to have the hinge pin to be able to be pulled out so you can remove the elevator. So this current version has the 2400 or the full span hinge. It used to stop in here somewhere, about 300mm short. But if you think about taking the elevator off, well, you'd have to de-rivet all the rudder post, fin post, all the top, all that dorsal fin. The rudder would simply slide off with the pin, but you have to de-rivet all the rudder, just to get your quick release hinge pin out. So, yeah, my elevator's staying on. Obviously, it'd be great if I wasn't painting it, well, in one way. Those who don't paint get it fairly easy because this would be basically finished and I could just about rivet it on. But this all has to come apart and be painted, but the end result will be fantastic. Still looking at whether I anchor nut this panel here. I might even put the terminal block on the panel, so pull it out, change it, put it back in. Probably do anchor nuts there, just so it's nice, or riv nuts. The trouble with the riv nuts, they sit a bit proud and you get that sort of effect. So that's that panel there. I've made sure I've got enough rudder throw and elevator throw the way it is at the moment. In the earlier video, I built a twist into the stab. Unbeknownst to me until you put the elevator on, and then the elevator lines up here, but I was missing by about, I don't know, 3/4 of an inch on the other side. So I de-skinned the top of the stab, held it down with straps, got it right, didn't have to re-drill anything. That's just how you cleco the stab that sort of worked all that out. So that's that. Then on the wings, I've got my the cowl, almost ready to start fitting the cowl. My wings were the second parts I built prior, so I did the empennage. I started with the empennage, tail, rudder first, fin, horizontal stab, elevator. Then I did both wings. On my wings, I've basically completed those. I've left that top skin off. I've done the hard skin, the nose, or the forward leading edge root skin. On that, down in here, I use plywood. So I cut a bit of plywood to fill the gap between the rib and the formed leading edge, stuffed it in there, and then I chamfered the plywood just to give this something to sort of form against. Filled it, riveted it, sanded it. I'm happy. The wing attachment bolt, I've seen people scallop this right out purely so you can get the bolt in. You know, standard practices is the head of the bolt goes upwind, so you push it that way. Theory being if the nut comes off, the wind would hold it in there. Well, guess what? I'm going to put mine in that way, and then I can get a spanner in there, keeps this nice and neat. Yes, it'll be in the wrong way, but there's a couple of other instances. I know where the wing strut goes, the bolt has to, because the wing skin is in the way, the bolt has to go from the ground up. So, you know, you can't do that. The engine mount bolts as well, I've got them facing forward so you can see the nut from the engine bay. So on my aircraft, I'm going to mount that bolt forward, the nut on the front, so I don't have a big hole here. Also with my fuselage penetrations, if you like, I've got my vent line, my main fuel line, I think that's a wire, yeah, that's a wire for the nav lights, and my fuel sender. So there's my fuel sender with the signal wire or power wire, and it's earth to the airframe. I think I'm also going to take that earth and run it all the way back to the power, to the main earth bus in the cockpit. I've already pre-run the wires from the bus up to the wing root. So with the wing root, I've noticed a few people put access panel in here. My plan, just in the side of the fuselage, just going to drill three holes with grommets. As I offer the wing up, I'll poke the fuel hose through, and that'll be it. So I don't need an access panel. All my connections will be on the inside. Got my bubble doors sitting there waiting to go on. The doors are framed up. They're just down here on the floor waiting to go. So I've, in my 600 hours, also got the doors there on and hinged. So I've got all the hinges done for that. Now when the windscreen's complete and the sunroof's on, then I'll put the doors on and drill for the plastic bubbles to go around the side. That's one of the next jobs coming up. Wingtips, they're all on nice and neat, happy with those. You do get gaps at the back. On my wingtips, I just filled that rather than have a big gap there, just because of where that is, and the water would run downhill. If it was at the bottom, I would have left it. I think on some of the other areas I have left those gaps. So back inside the fuselage, you can see I've got my pitot and static lines just tied up there through the seat belt at the moment, and also my positive and negative for the fuel sender. So there you go, guys, there's a quick whip around. 600 hours into the Cruzer, 11 months, going well. If you've got any questions, just whack it in the comments below. Happy to answer anything or clarify any points. There is a lot of variations in this. As long as you get the job done and you're having fun, I guess that's what it's all about. Really enjoying the build, going to continue on. Can't wait for the day when I push it out into the sun. Next few videos, I have filmed so far the work on the windscreen. There's not a great deal of information out there, but I'm just going to film what I've done, the way I went about it. Touch wood, it's all working out so good so far, and I'll post that one up. Doors will go on next, bubble windows of the cowl, then we'll start work on the engine cowl, fit the cowl, then I think it's time to hang the wings. Hope you enjoyed that one. See you on the next video.